people will start to trickle in. I bet a number of folks are traveling right now and out of state, so we won't have them. But I am going to call this work session to order. Today is Friday, March 15th, 2024. It's 11:36 a.m. We're scheduled on this topic till 12:50. And the topic is a work session on food for thought. Food for thought is kind of a theme I'm hoping to talk about over the next several weeks or month, or maybe even a little longer. Food for thought is only part of it. It's what's good Anchorage is what I've been calling it when I've been moving around and talking with folks, because we spend so much time talking about problems and trying to solve problems. We don't spend enough time talking about what's good. And so this is an opportunity to talk about what's good. And so we'll do introductions first, starting with Ms. Bronga.
Karen Bronga.
Scott Myers.
Christopher Constant.
Allie Hartman, Legislative Services.
Actually, on the phone, we have Mr. Rivera. Are you there?
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. There?
I'm here.
Anyone else on the phone we don't have accounted for? Okay. Introduce yourself briefly and push the button so the light's green. Let it go. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there we go. John Ostman with Anchorage Folk Festival.
Thanks. And then definitely turn it off. Otherwise, it's hot and you never know what might happen.
Hi, I'm Natalie Treadwell with Showdown Productions.
I'm Helen Fleming with Showdown Alaska.
Same thing.
Yep. All right. We also have legal counsel, members of the clerk staff, more of our legislative team, some members of the administration in the back. So again, where I started. The idea today is the first of a series of conversations we're going to have that help to portray some of the really good things that are happening in our town. Because it's all too easy to fall into the pit of despair and believe all of the negativity is the only thing happening. But that is not the truth. The truth is there are a lot of great things happening across every corner of this municipality, from Eklutna to Portage. And there are a lot of things worth celebrating. And so today we're going to have a discussion. Our food for thought conversation will be with the Anchorage Folk Festival as well as the Sundown Music Festival. So this was kind of a conversation Allie and I started some time ago. It can be kind of a terrible thing when you get a text from me late at night that says, I have an idea for you, because ideas can start small and then grow pretty big. The idea started with a conference that Mr. Martinez and I attended in Idaho, in Boise last year, Music Cities, and it was kind of a Music City Summit conversations about how the Northwest can be a better host and hub for music culture and music economies, and provide for opportunities in our community to build up music as an opportunity to build bridges within our community and provide jobs and do a lot of good. Through the pandemic, we had an experience where everything shut down, and it was quite scary for those who were in the creative economy, because the creative economy often tends to be the last thing people think about when it comes to relief and support. And people don't think about musicians who work in a club or a bar at night, who are making a living doing that because they do, or who are touring around to clubs and make their music by performing and selling their art as they go, where that all shut down. And we as the Assembly really fought hard to create some relief. I think we put together a grant program that any artist who paid $1 to the IRS was qualified for a $5,000 grant, because we realized they also are part of our economy. And probably one of the best, most favorite things that I did in my service on the Assembly so far was working on a concert called AK for AK with Showdown Productions. When the whole world was shut down, we got together before anyone else out there that I've seen in the whole country, and we hosted a concert that we filmed down in Ship Creek. And the folks who've been on the body long enough will remember I called into that meeting for one vote, and the whole chamber filled up with music because we were out there producing. And we hosted a digital concert for all of Alaska, and had thousands of viewers, and it was a bridge building moment when everything looked really dark. And so in the theme of bridge building moments when everything can look really dark, we're going to have a talk with our artists in our community. First, Chauncey, welcome. You have the floor. Please state your name and then tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, good afternoon. or almost. I'm John Ostman. I'm the current president board of directors with the Anchorage Folk Festival. We do have a presentation here. I don't know, is that also on the I guess not on the phone, but
On the website, yeah.
oh, it's on the website.
And then go ahead and just turn that on the side there. Perfect. Yes, perfect.
Okay. So, well, I'll just, our logos here on the screen and connection contacts, how to get in touch with us. They're at the bottom. You'll see that throughout. So what's the Anchorage Folk Festival? I would assume that most people have heard of us. We were established in 1989 as a nonprofit in the state of Alaska. We're a 9-seat working board of directors. We have no executive director or coordinator. We are community-based, we're membership-driven, and we're 100% volunteer-run. That is our board of directors. All of us have day jobs. That's our super volunteers that are, we pay our stage, our sound production engineers and other people, but for the most part, this is completely run by volunteers and has been throughout the entire life of the festival. So why is there an Anchorage Folk Festival? So our mission in our bylaws is to operate and perpetuate an annual festival featuring folk arts of live performances of musicians and community performers. So we're really trying to bring local folks onto the stage and give them their opportunity to perform. We're also here to acquaint and educate the general public about the folk arts. Specifically, this has been music, although dance is a large part of what we are encouraging as well. We're providing a symposium for the interchange of cultural performance ideas, so we're not limited to one genre of music. Folk doesn't have a box it fits in. Folk music and folk art really can be anything from depending on where you're from. And we try to encourage that and make sure that that's represented on our stage, both in our local performers and also in the guest artists that we bring each year. I'll talk a little bit more about them later. And finally, it's in our mission to maintain a tradition of free public admission and encourage live performances by non-professional artists. So for the life of the festival, the public admission to our main stage and to the festival, other than our fundraising events, is free. And it's free not only in our main hall, but our workshops are free, our dances are free, and most of the performances that we sponsor in local venues are also free. And I think that message doesn't actually get out as strongly as it should. So how do we fund ourselves? I just said it was free. Like, we have to actually pay for this. I mean, you're not paying me. I'm a volunteer. And so is most everybody else. But we pay for the hall that we're in. We pay our sound engineers. We pay for tables to be put into the hall. And so in 2023, I don't have 2024 numbers. Our fiscal year runs April 1st to March 31st. So we're just coming up on the end of our 2024 fiscal year. In 2023, we had about 240 individual members. We have anonymous donations, and I think we received a little over $3,000 through the Pick, Click, Give program, which is fantastic. We also receive arts grants from Alaska Community Foundation. Municipality of Anchorage has been a partner of ours, a sponsor of ours for many, many years, the Mayor's Arts Grant. And in past years, we've received funds from the Rasmussen Foundation. And we also have commercial sponsors, and I'll highlight some of those later in the talk. But we had 39 donors in 2023 who provide both in-kind support, so donations for raffle tickets or raffle items, maybe silent auction items, as well as cash donations. And all of that helps fund our festival. So what happens? So this is an annual festival, and here in the bulleted points, we are featuring everything in white is free, and where the text is white, and everything in this might, if there's a black and white copy of this, it probably won't stick out. But then everything else, the 3 items, so the guest artist concerts, barn dances, and our kickoff party actually cost money. They are fundraisers for us. So that's another way we generate revenue. And we might do some of these outside of our festival season, which is typically the second or the last 2 weekends of January every year. So we have main stage performances with local musicians, professional guest artists that we bring up from CONUS. We commission a visual artist, usually locally, to produce our art. So here's one that we had where Ted Kim did it for one of our festival years during COVID when we couldn't actually offer it. And so hence the empty auditorium and the lonely performer on the stage. We have partnered with Parlor in the Round, another fantastic arts organization here in town. Kevin Worrell and his group. We offer workshops, folk week concerts. So these are in different venues across the Muni, extending out to Eagle River, Girdwood, and even out into Palmer. We've had a banjo contest sponsored by the local burger man, for 13 years and running. We've most recently partnered with the Alaska Piping and Drum Society to do a bagpipe competition. We do an instrument swap, raffle, silent auctions. We have our annual membership meeting, and we sell merchandise with all the kind of cool stuff that the art that's produced for the festival. So where does it happen? Our home, if you want to call it that, has been at UAA's Wendy Williamson Auditorium for about the last couple decades. We're in the lobby. We're on the main stage. We do workshops, over 50 workshops in their professional studies building and on the main stage at UAA. I'm not going to read all the places where we do folk week concerts, but these are local venues that have supported us. We put sound engineers into these places so that the musicians themselves can be amplified and the patrons in the restaurants can hear them. There's nothing worse than being a musician and not be able to be heard. And so that's free to all of these. They're not paying the musicians, neither are we. These are all volunteers going in, but it gives them an opportunity to play a longer set than what they would get on the main stage. And then we do these fundraisers, concerts and dances. And these are just the 3 that we used in 2024. Although we've been at places like 49th State, Willowa, Palmer Railroad Depot, PAC, so on. So what about the awesome artwork? So like we commission this, and it can be commissioned, meaning that it's either donated or it is we pay for it. A local artist to produce festival artwork, which we then reproduce as merchandise and we sell it. That's a big fundraiser for us. This was this year's Jennifer Sun, Midnight Sun Art produced this. She also really was excited about producing the backdrop. And so we don't always get that. Sometimes we have somebody doing the backdrop and somebody doing the artwork. And she incorporated, like you can see how the design might have changed. She put a beluga playing a fiddle into the backdrop. She put the white raven into the backdrop. And it was pretty exciting. People really, really loved this.
So before you go on, go back.
What's
to
that?
I think that's Ashley Young on the stage.
Mariah May is
that's
the
Mariah.
guitar player,
Okay.
and this is her
Gotcha.
group of students.
Thanks. Okay, perfect.
Yep. Mariah May is a longtime supporter of the Anchorage Folk Festival and one of the members of the Supersaturated Sugar Strings. So what about like all of the awesome guest artists that we bring each year? So this is from this year. I could have put 100 bands on this slide, but what we're trying to do is represent as big or present as broad a spectrum of music as we can. This year we kind of featured really, really solid songwriting and like songwriting with really good background supporting bands. So we brought a band from Pennsylvania, in Pennsylvania Dutch country, and a band from Ireland, and paired them, one in the first weekend, one in the second weekend. And both were received really well. It's so nice to be able to put bands back on the stage after a couple year hiatus. We also do all these special events. Like I said, we partner with Parlor in the Round. We put a concert, did a concert at the Beartooth with our first week guest artist, and had a local powerhouse group, She's With Me, open up for them. We did a barn dance at the Nave, and it's a great space. I wish we had more and bigger spaces because we pack that place every year. These are one band from Homer, another band from here locally, and the caller, just a local, longtime local caller who has been calling dances across the country, for decades and decades. And then we went out to Eagle River, which was a really cool thing for us to do this year. We've done that in coffee shops before, but we've never actually done one of our weekend feature guest artist out in Eagle River, and it was really well received. We packed that place. We sold out like full on. So there's so much to do, and this is just an example. So we start on a Thursday, we end like 10 days or however many days later on a Sunday, and we just have stuff going the whole time. So Folk Week in between. We sponsor community jams, and we really try. It's a community festival, right? So we want to give everybody give back to the community as much as we can throughout. So just sort of by the numbers for 2024, we had 127 community performers, and that's acts, I should say, not people. So some acts like the Anchorage Mandolin Orchestra puts 30 people on the stage. So that fits into one of those community performers. Playing these 15-minute main stage acts at the Wendy Williamson. We had 57 workshops led by local community members and guest artists. So that's, again, 57 actual workshops, not number of people. We sold out all three of our special events. We could have put more people in each of those places with over 1,000 attendees and tickets sold. We had 5 days of Folk Week acts, or with over 40 acts in 13 local venues. And that's just incredible. We actually had about 80 local acts that were interested, but we didn't have room for them. Again, we're volunteers, right? So we estimate about 7,500 main stage attendees. We packed the Wendy Williamson on both nights that the guest artist played. That's a first in many years. And so it's great. We're seeing the community come back together and really support live music indoors in the winter. We had over 45 volunteers, not including the 9 board members, and just so much more throughout 2024. It was a really successful year for us, just in what we were able to bring back to the community. So what's our future? We came up with some strategic operating priorities, our 5-year plan, if you will, to actively grow this next generation of, folk art performers in Anchorage, enhance our community engagement in the performing arts, and then expand recognition throughout Alaska for our impact. We need to significantly grow our membership if we're going to be sustainable. And to remain strong, we need like a diverse, more revenue, diverse sources of revenue, and that'll help our long-term fiscal stability. Because really what we have to do, we're a working board, and we burn ourselves out every single year, and we burn ourselves out in our terms. So we have our 3-year terms, is we need to establish a solid, sustainable human resources infrastructure. We need an executive director. We need some sort of dedicated festival coordination support. And I think that would help us kind of build and fully, better engage our community of volunteers. And then we define this nonprofit governance a little bit differently, so that our working board transitions into a governing board. And we have a lot of ideas. We would rather not be making sure that the tables get delivered. We really should be thinking about the future of our organization, but we don't have the funds to do that. And we're working on it. So our near-term goals, we're already planning for the 36th annual festival. That's January 2025. We have dates. We're talking with bands, and we're working on expanding our local partnerships with, just building those out, like really bringing people back together, and kind of presenting ourselves and keeping ourselves relevant outside of our festival season, which again is just January. So hopefully we can do some more stuff this summer and throughout the year. So a big thank you here. Our 2024 sponsors, commercial sponsors, we really couldn't do it without their in-kind and hard cash donations. And I'll take any questions or sit here for discussion for a bit.
Hey, thank you very much. I note at 11:55, Ms. Brawley arrived and is with us now. I have a very light question. Why do you have, and first company I know of, a fiscal year that's April 1? Yeah, there you go.
It's a great question. That was what was established in our bylaws at the beginning. And the short answer that I think I'm comfortable saying is because our festival is in January. What we want is, and the majority of our revenue comes in sort of that last couple of weeks of January. And people get really excited, and we still get checks like trickling into February with memberships. That allows people to be a member for that year's festival.
I see.
If I had my way, I would probably change it to fit with everybody else's fiscal year or a different fiscal year, which we did change our membership strategy. So our membership strategy used to actually follow our fiscal year as well, which was a really confusing thing for people when they would become a member at the festival and then all of a sudden their memberships would lapse.
Right.
So now we've changed it. So the day you become a member, March 1st, let's say, you are a member until March 1st the following year.
Right. And I know of 3 standard fiscal years. It's January 1, July 1, or October 1. So the first I've ever heard of April 1, April Fools. All right. Other questions? Other thoughts? Anyone? Ms. Bronga?
I just really appreciate the Folks Festival. It seems like January is kind of a mean month. And then I go, oh, Folk Festival's coming. It's fabulous. And besides just really excited about local talent that's up there, I've attended one of the mandolin classes and dance, and it just really is amazing. But one thing I wanted to share with you, which I'm sure you've heard this story before, but I've had 2 family members that have taken up an instrument because of going to the Folk Festival and hoping that they will eventually get good enough that they can be one of the artists. And my son-in-law has played the last 2 years, like the afternoon spot on a Saturday, but he's in there. So it's really fun.
We love those stories because that's how our festival has sustained for 35 years. Mariah May, actually, I'll point out that the people in the picture here, and actually probably most of the pictures that I've had up there are people that grew up in this festival. So we have Amanda Kerr here. She's the fiddler, like closest to us in that black and white photo. Her parents were 2 of the founders of the festival. She was just a toddler running up and down the stairs or in the hallways, and went on to become a national fiddle champion. And so you don't have to carry it that far, but if we can inspire anybody to pick up an instrument or to sing or to dance or that's the mission. It's just to perpetuate the love of this. Again, folk music, folk arts don't have a box. So wherever you take it is is what we'll be there to encourage.
All right, so I think now, stick around, we'll pivot to Showdown. Welcome, Showdown.
Thank you. Just once again to introduce myself, I'm Natalie Treadwell. I'm the Community Outreach Director with Showdown. We're going to start with a short video from last year's Sundown Music Festival, and this should just give you, thank you, a little bit of an idea of what we've been doing in Cuddy Park and trying to do with our outdoor shows in Anchorage, both at Cuddy Park and at the F Street and 7th intersection just outside City Hall here. Which is where our first Sundown was. And we also hold block parties in the summer there in association with Willowa. So let's start with the video and then I'll come back to our presentation. Great. Well, so we wait for the presentation to come up. We just wanted to launch into a bit of an introduction into who Showdown is. Let me go back. Showdown has been around for just over 10 years now. We are an independent production team here in Anchorage, aiming to bring music to the city and uplift Anchorage as one of the premier destinations for music in the city. We've had several notable shows in Anchorage. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see some of our shows and the number of patrons. But our founders, Helen Fleming, who's here with us today, and Ray Flores have been pushing this movement for the past 10 years and really been instrumental to bringing outside national acts to Alaska and uplift local groups and artists to perform alongside of those national acts. You can also see we have a large social media reach, and we have a majority of those are within the state of Alaska, but we also have reached down into the lower states and around the world. And we are seeing with the Sundown Festival that we're having a lot of patrons from both the lower 48 and other countries attend, and we fully intend to continue to grow that and just bring attention to Anchorage and some of the events that are happening within the city. So Sundown has been around for 2 years. We're working on our third festival, third year, which will be June 7th, 8th, and 9th this year. This was our stage last year, and our map for last year at Cuddy Park, which was the first time we held the event at that area, and it was quite successful. We had 5 stages, carnival rides from Golden Wheel Amusement, several local food trucks and vendors who provided food for all the patrons, and just kind of some fun events and art installations that our team put together. We also had parking provided by Lusac Library and some trolley routes to downtown with the trolley. Just a quick note on the date. It historically has been the Juneteenth weekend, and we've moved the festival back with the intention of helping the Juneteenth organizers have more attendance and focus on their events that weekend, as well as Pride, and Solstice festivals that happen on that weekend. It's a very busy weekend, and we want to make sure that community members can attend all of those events. And additionally, we have a lot of outside national acts that come and stay at the hotels, as well as visitors who come for the festival. So just moving it to earlier in the tourism season is a bit easier on the city, and then there's more availability for places for people to stay and really try to open up the summer season a bit earlier. So this map here shows worldwide ticket orders. This is ticket orders can be up to 10 tickets. So it just shows that within each order, there were 7 countries that tickets were purchased in. And then this next map will show you U.S. ticket orders. And we had ticket orders from 24 states, not including Alaska. So we had quite a large number of people from lower 48 coming up to visit. And that includes getting a hotel room and staying in a hotel room, potentially extending their visit and traveling more within Anchorage and outside of Anchorage. So we see this festival as a great draw for outside tourism, not just within the U.S., but the world. And we intend to see that grow and are very excited about the opportunity to have people come visit Alaska and stop in Anchorage, spend time here in the city, at the festival, and then go out and have their outdoor Alaska adventure. That's kind of how we've been marketing our tickets to people outside of the state, come in and get a fun festival experience, but also get to go, see a glacier and a bear and a moose and all those things. So just a recap from 2023, we had about 16,000 people throughout the whole weekend. It was 4,000 Friday, 4,500 and 5,000 Saturday and Sunday. We're looking to double that this year. We had several vendors, in everything from, fresh Alaska salmon to getting glitter and hair dye and things like that you saw on the video. And we had quite a few impressions on social media from this event. So it was seen far and wide, and we're very proud of that. And like I said, just continue to grow this into the coming years. So this is just a bit of an advertisement for next year. We encourage you to share this with your constituents and with your friends and family. And we hope to see you at sundown. It's going to be a very fun event this year. And I just wanted to give you a little bit more background on it. For this year, we're going to have 3 stages, 30 national acts, 35 local acts. We did pare down the stages so that we can have kind of more concentration and give more focus to each of the artists. We'll have live artists doing murals, local food vendors, and they're expected to have an attendance of about 7,000 every day. The festival will be going a little bit later. It'll be open until midnight. We'll have music going until about 11:30. And this is an all ages event. The festival, you can enter 16 and up without a parent and guardian. We do make sure that anyone who's under 16 has a parent or a legal guardian with them. And this year, anyone under 10 will be free. Last year, that was under 5. We did see a lot amount of families coming in, a lot of rave strollers, which we thought were very cute. People had their babies in the stroller and lights decorated all around it and things like that. Or, they were making sure they were getting ear protection for their kids, which was great. We were super happy to see that. And just want to continue to encourage that this is a family-friendly event. And we want to make music accessible to that younger generation. Most everybody who works on our team, we're kids looking up to those shows that they couldn't get into and they were 21 and just hoping that there was something for them. And that's a really big goal of us at Showdown, is to make sure that shows are accessible to people under 21. And we'll continue to talk about that in the rest of our presentation. But just some more numbers. Last year we had 34 food trucks and vendors. Were projected to continue to build that this year. We had a lot of local staff, and that's both gig and full-time year-round staff who work all of our events at Willowa and are trained in event management and all of that for the festival. We also bring in contracted staff from out of state, and all of those people, they are either staying at Airbnbs and hotels that we have, or they stay with our staff, and we really try to put them wherever we can. I think everyone is fully aware of how difficult it can be to get housing in the summer, so we do what we can and try to support the hotels and Airbnbs best we can. We'll just try to get through this quickly so we can continue on to our discussion. But one of the big things we're pushing is music tourism. Every national act that has come up to Alaska for these shows has shared this content across their huge social media platforms. All the four artists I have up here, Diplo, OGC, Steve Aoki, and Baby No Money all have followers into the millions across several platforms. And they've done things such as shoot music videos in Alaska and share content on their pages, and come and not only do they share the concert and the shows that they play, but then they go out and do these big adventures. And so it's a huge push to drive the younger generation to come up to Alaska and really spend their money up here and their time. As a young person, I know myself, my vacation time and my funds to go spend those vacations are limited. And so seeing these big artists go and push this stuff out really is hopeful to people that they can go and travel within the US, and they don't need to go on a big international trip to have a wild experience. So these are things that we encourage our national acts when they come up. We try to help them, put them in touch with tour groups and things like that, or local cinematographers to help shoot their videos. And we're constantly connecting our national artists with our local art community to help push great media out there about Alaska. And then we've prepared this slide today to just kind of show you what happens and how we feel like we can foster more of this. This flow chart just shows that, our all ages show bring things like benefit to the city with permit revenue, quality use of our local spaces and parks, local year-round and gig jobs, and events that rival those in the lower 48, and our stimulus for spillover into things like hotels, bars, and restaurants. And that all leads to youth engagement, which is really what I think all of us are working towards is how can we build a fun city that people want to not only raise kids in, but those kids want to stay in and continue to kind of build the culture. We think that contributes heavily to music tourism, which will help validate outside promoters. We're in support of outside promoters. They do bring in some of those larger national acts that we just don't have the capacity to afford to bring to our state right now. But the unfortunate thing with those is most of the revenue does leave Alaska. We're seeing those really big national acts are mostly coming to the Alaska Airlines UAA Center. So that, kind of targets the 18 to 25 demographic. Some of their all ages shows are would be different. But, we want to really, we'll do what we can to help foster more promotion and production in Anchorage. So we just have some ideas of what that could be like, and I'm happy to leave this slide up while we launch into a discussion. But some of those would be just municipality funded music grants for things like promoters to throw all ages events, kind of a third space for youth in Anchorage where they can throw their own events, maybe some grants for them to be able to deal with the overhead of permits and equipment and all of those things. We also see something like a practice room for youth where they can go and actually have form a band and be able to safely lock up their equipment or be able to record and put things out would be hugely beneficial to the youth. We're seeing a lot of music funding being cut. And I think if the city were to put something together like this and create a third space, we'd see a lot of kids who are interested in music finally have that extra push to be able to do something and follow that. And just continue to activate the youth to throw their own events and kind of build the scene with the younger people. So there's these fun, safe events, and then they're activated to come to the shows when they're older, stay in Alaska and come work with us or build their own production company and kind of really just build up a group of young concert goers. And we see with our shows that are all ages being a huge stimulus to local music shops like Mammoth Music and Horn Doctor. We've actually heard specifically back from them that they've had some of their largest weekends after our all ages shows, which is super exciting for us to hear and something we just wanted to share with you guys. So with that, I'm going to let Helen fill in any blanks that I might have had, and then we can open up for discussion.
Well, Natalie killed it. Natalie and I were talking last night. This is actually a slide that we made super late. That's why we were a little late submitting our PowerPoint yesterday. But we were kind of talking because, you know, we do all these presentations and really like, we love showing off. We love, you know, letting you guys know what we do. We love bragging about our amazing team and patrons, and we love bragging about our community. But sometimes I feel like in these meetings, it just kind of sits. Like you guys are like, good job, Showdown. And then you don't see us again, maybe till summer. Maybe you come to an event, but what really is coming out of this sometimes. Well, so what I wanted to do is take a little bit of our time to tell you a little bit of the problems that we're seeing with Showdown, which is we have really done a good job at activating 18 to 35, but we're really starting to see it get harder and harder and harder to bring under 18 out. You know, I don't know the direct reason. I've read studies of, you know, during COVID, you know, kids not, or the youth not, you know, leaving their house as much, not being as social. Why would you leave when you can watch a big concert on Fortnite or play a music festival in Roblox? It's obviously different, and I'm not saying anything's wrong, but how do we increase that social ability of the youth? Well, I come to you as a kid that was 16 that, you know, rented the Fairview Rec Center with some friends and brought a bunch of equipment and sold paper tickets and put up flyers, and just like a punk kid that kind of was navigating on what she was doing. And well, 20 years later, I'm here in the city hall telling you that sometimes these kids turn into people that really like can engage others. And so I never ever count out youth, because I was one of them. What I can tell you right now that I'm seeing a lack of is I operated an all ages venue for about 5 to 6 years. I was in my 20s. I made money off of a $10 ticket. That was really all I could charge. And, you know, a $3 Red Bull. After insurance and production and staff, you would end up with about like $200. I couldn't even support myself. I had to have a second job the entire time. So all ages venues, unless they're, you know, established nonprofit, is what I learned, that there really wasn't able to kind of grow or sustain itself. So I'm wondering, is in this conversation, I'm not sure if, you know, we were invited to tell you guys things that we might need, but I think that, you know, and Natalie and I were talking about it, but I think that these third spaces, or there's a lot of rooms I feel like in the city that aren't being used. And obviously we've gone through a ton of muni properties for other reasons, but we've seen a lot of empty spaces. Are there ways for, you know, rooms to be turned into plug and play venues? And with that, I'm not saying like crazy parties or raves, but I'm saying like, are there ways to set up a sound system, have a, you know, funding for an engineer, and let kids, you know, rent these spaces out for, you know, something affordable? When you go to the Nave, it's a wonderful example of, you know, kids getting together to throw all ages shows. They currently are doing them there, but it's $1,200. That's a lot if you're in 16 or 17 years old, even 18. So really, like, when we would see these all ages shows, we started seeing them grow. And this is, of course, the, you know, mid 2000s, but we were getting 200 to 300 kids. And in that, where we put the stimulus to local music shops, well, you know, I was getting feedback from a lot of the music stores saying, these are the best sales we ever had, because kids see kids on stage and they go, oh, that's really cool. I want to be a musician too. So then we start having them become musicians, become their own bands. Then they're going to events as kids, turning into going to events as adults, going to folk festival, going to concerts, going to community gatherings. I'm worried about this generation because they don't have that right now. There's always kind of been some kind of all ages something, whether it's gigs, Beatos, the downstairs, ACW. There's nothing right now. So I'm very worried that right now, you know, things seem pretty good, but I'm worried that if we don't provide these like spaces or third spaces to these youth, that we're going to see that dwindle. And I think that we'll be able to retain youth if they feel like they have more things to do, and again, sociability. So I'm wrapping up this presentation. Thank you for the the invite to Showdown and Sundown, and we hope to see you there. But I leave you with my vision is to provide more services to the youth and all ages market, and that will make things like the folk festival and Sundown a lot more sustainable in the future, and you'll see us around still in 20 years. So thank you.
All right, I had Miss Brawley in the queue.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate this slide in particular. I did get to see the CEDC presentation, but I think this is something I've thought about a lot, especially having traveled to some other cities recently and having been a theater kid. I was not a music kid, but I hung out with the music kids. And so I totally appreciate your comment about education and making arts programs important in schools and outside of school. And of course, we're saying all this the morning after the governor vetoed education funding. So clearly that's in the mix as well. But so moving away from that, I do have one specific piece of feedback for the festival. So I'm looking forward to getting my ticket and going at least for one of the days. Had a lot of fun last year as a one-day participant. But when we were looking for parking, some of the things that I think were listed on the website were basically like the telecom, I think it's GCI over there, or ACS, whoever, that said, oh, you can park in this area, but it was an employee parking lot. So just, I think for folks, just making it clear where you can and can't park, and either getting an agreement with that or just saying you can't park in this area besides the library. And then also making it really clear what the transit options are. For example, Route 85 goes right near there. They just increased the frequency of service. So that's a great option for downtown West Side. And then there's other options too. So anyway, just to say that's my feedback on that. On this question though, I guess my thoughts and then a question, what you're describing is really how do you make it easier for youth to exist in a city? I mean, that's what it is. So can you afford housing? Can you find a job? Can you find a job that lets you do these things in your free time? And then is there basically retail space or commercial real estate that you can use, right? And I think what I've kind of come to conclude in this city is we've made it really expensive for artists, and I think back to the history of cities like New York City, for example, decades ago, part of the reason that place thrived as an art community was because of cheap real estate. And some of it was, warehouses in bad shape and that kind of thing. But it lets you exist in that scrappy space. I think Detroit has seen that too. And I know some of that is the efforts of folks like Jack White, but I mean, just it's so critical to have cheap and accessible real estate for what you're talking about, I think. And that's what you're talking about here. And then layer on top of that issues like liability, right? Like all these other insurance, these things that we've just made it really difficult for that kind of informal, not necessarily very institutional or based on a nonprofit kind of space. So, and then of course there's the economy, there's wages, there's all the other aspects of, again, making it possible for a young person to exist and be creative in a city. But I guess just curious on the real estate side, because you mentioned practice rooms and things like that. Where do you see those third spaces happening now? Because I guess I'm aware of Cafecito Bonito. You mentioned the Nave. Aquila. Yeah. So I'm just curious kind of like what's out there now that we could be supporting, or is that really just a huge gap that we don't have a lot of?
All those places that you mentioned are great. Again, they just come with a kind of heavy rental and requirements. And so if you're an average, 18-year-old, you might shy away from that. I wanted to mention too, the practice rooms. A lot of this really hones in, like I absolutely agree with you on more affordable housing. And I absolutely agree with you on pretty much everything you said. I'm really honing in on 14 to 18 in this slide, maybe even 13 to 18, because what I'm seeing is these kids don't ever actually go out and experience an Anchorage community doing anything. They're very like home-based. So I'm starting to see just from feedback of like my friends' children that they're like, Anchorage isn't for me. I have nowhere, because if they're not in a sport or they're not in a team, they really don't have any extracurricular at this point. And again, these vetoes don't help, but they go, I don't really belong here. I'm going to go. and they get that in their head, and then at 18 they're out. So really it's not, as much as I always want to advocate for cheaper housing and whatnot, I'm really trying to hone in on an actual smaller attainable goal of driving youth to events and getting them out to experience other kids that have the same interests as them, so they feel like they belong in the city. I wasn't a sports kid. Again, I hang out with the music, the band kids. I'm still here. I stayed here. I think I attribute that to having a feeling of belonging and having a friend group. I can't speak the same to a lot of the kids out there right now. Again, the practice rooms is a big one. As we go to affordable housing, as we go to like more multiplexes, those kids run out of places to practice. No one, we all love watching a 13-year-old play drums, but if you're 45 and trying to go to bed, you really don't want it. So there's a lot of things in the lower 48 in these music cities that the cities actually fund, places that are practice spaces that lock, that have scheduling. You go in, you have your assigned code. The kids go in, they practice, they leave. It's all camera monitored. We've seen that. We personally don't have that in our revenue stream to provide. It's something that we've tried to talk to others about, but it'd be something that to this group, I'd love to see that expanded upon. I think if there were more practice spaces, you'd see more all ages bands and kids playing music outside of, the traditional band school, which is also, kind of getting cut sometimes. And that would then activate them more towards these events. Then there's the other side. There's I was also kind of a student government nerd kid. And so you see these other ones that want to throw events, that want to throw parties, that want to monetize out of their friends, which is great because they want to do like events that speak to them. And again, Cafecito, the Nave, Aquila, those are all great, but those I can't speak to those being free and or cost, like Star at Cafecito does a great job of being inclusive and doing amazing events. But again, it's slightly limited if you look at her space on having, big all ages shows there. Is there places in the rec centers that can be, again, like a sound system, a plug and play lighting, something that volunteers like from the folk festival or Showdown, we have tons of, volunteer sound engineers on our staff because it's something that we could volunteer and sign up for to go plug in and help these kids set up and help them throw an event. That's kind of what I'm going at. To speak to your parking, I absolutely agree. Parking has been such a focus this year. We have been working out a little more parking agreements with surrounding buildings. A lot of businesses are, I'm not going to call anyone out, but a lot of businesses were afraid. Midtown, that area right now is a pretty stressful area for businesses with the big unhoused, the National Archives lot. I don't blame them. They have, they're experiencing a lot of break-ins and whatnot, so they're very hesitant for letting the public park in their spaces. So we are very thankful to LUSAC. We're very thankful to Trolley. We actually were going to reach out to some of the assembly members because Route 85 and increasing it on that weekend or getting it later. That was really our biggest issue with the bus route, is that it wasn't going as late as we needed it to, because we are trying to very much work out and tell people park downtown. We have all of our after parties and all of our after party programming downtown. We'd love for you to park in the garage, ride the bus. That's going to be a big push for us. So I'm excited you said that because that's something we had discussed too. So again, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying this is the problem that I see on amplification is this, we're really missing on the 14 to 18.
I'm going to jump in there. I have myself listed. A couple thoughts come from the things that you've brought up in mind. I checked with the Parks and Rec director, and in fact, we don't have any music spaces in our rec centers. And the Boys and Girls Club apparently does have a recording studio and some music, but that's limited in a neighborhood. And it's a good service, but it's certainly not a public investment. And so that certainly raises an idea of one thing that we could do, but recognizing that rec centers are always under the similar pressure of other municipal entities to close earlier and not be available in those times. So there's something to chew on there. It's very interesting. And certainly looks like something we should be looking at to make some investments in. I see the juxtaposition of the two organizations here. You're a commercial interest, which I really appreciate because it helps you grow, and you're a nonprofit interest with no staff at all. And I think about how would you manage a space for 14 to 18-year-olds, and you need an adult in the room, don't you? And so if you're going to give up your space to a small group of people or even a medium-sized group of people, there are just some realities that seem to be incumbent. And all of those places you listed, which I managed to go to a few of them, gigs, etc., they had their challenges. And so I wonder how we could square that. And it comes to mind, seeing both of you, that there might be an organization that could be established that would provide for some limited management of 14 to 18-year-old, kind of promoting that whole thing. And maybe there is an organization that already does some of that work. Who comes to mind? And it's not their mission, but Covenant House is like such in that space that they might have some ideas of who came through their system and is on their feet that might be a natural. So I guess the gist of this comment is that this is an excellent idea, and we should talk through the realities of it and figure it out, because I could imagine a number of public spaces that are around town that are empty that could be used, but it just would have to come with enough structure that we could convince the risk management team that we weren't going to create more problems than we were solving.
Yeah, I guess I approached coming to this as like a work session where I didn't have all the answers, but I thought, I was saying to myself, this is the problem. So I
love it.
absolutely acknowledge
love
that.
it.
And I think this is, an issue for us. We are in the midst of kind of developing a nonprofit arm of Showdown so that we can further our mission of providing, viable compensation to our mural artists and furthering our artists and local artists, as well as youth is a huge focus. This may be something that in a few months we could talk about. For me, it was really real estate. If you build it, they will come type of approach kind of works in this, but as far as like practice rooms, that was the biggest one that we really tried to nail ourselves, and we couldn't, because we just didn't have the ability to have a building that had locked, rooms and whatnot. That's kind of where I thought, the Boys and Girls Club or the rec centers or other city spaces that, had that, because like, Anna said, if you get into multiplex housing, if you get into small apartments, if you're building all of this housing, you lose out on that key issue for these kids. So,
So believe me, I wasn't calling you for not having a plan. Like,
oh no, it's
you're bringing
okay.
the ideas to the table, and it's juicy and it's opportune and
Well,
it's interesting.
yeah.
And so it's just a matter of now thinking through, like, what are the steps, and which points us to an idea that this is a beginning of a conversation. It's not a conclusive conversation. So that's probably good.
Yeah, I'm going to go away from the specific, but again, these are things that I think about a lot, and especially going to other cities and kind of reflecting on, like Atlanta, for example, was down there, and you can just feel the energy of that place, right? And the entrepreneur, and not that we don't have energy, right? But I mean, and something that strikes me is it really is, I guess, among other things, the ascendancy of a new generation, and just the ability to start a business. Because, for example, Cafecito and Aquila, those are businesses that have been started by younger entrepreneurs, right? And so they're responding to what they see their demographic or their clientele wanting. It is a different way of being than we've had in this city for a long time, right? It's the inevitable change of culture over time in a city. But I think the thing that I keep reflecting on is just how difficult and how steep of a climb that is for so many younger people here. Entrepreneurs, we hear it from ACLT to talking about trying to start businesses. And I don't just mean generational, but I mean, if you don't have the capital to start it, if you can't find the physical space to start it, and even if you want to take that risk, you literally can't, right? Maybe you don't have savings because you've been working jobs that don't allow you to have savings, right? And it's the same issue of not being able to buy a property, right? And so So I don't know the answer to that, but I think I really appreciate you guys bringing this, because I think it's incumbent on us as elected officials and other leaders in the city to think not just what we and our demographics preferences are and kind of how things have been, but also caring for and thinking about making space for new generations to come up. And I think one kind of interesting tiny example of that is the mural on the wall back there, right? You know, there was a lot of outcry about, oh, you're painting over this mural and it's so great. And, you know, and it reflects really a specific narrative about a specific way of thinking about this place and who's involved and who's elevated, and the stories you tell or don't tell. But they did it anyway, right? And now we have this beautiful, colorful, just this new, and it gives that whole parking lot, really, that whole area, new energy. And I think I think about that a lot, just the will that it takes to say, no, we are going to change something. We're going to make it different. And then we are going to recognize that other people have not been centered for a long time. Anyway, sorry, I said I would get far afield of the specifics, but I think it is just so important to think about the implications of planning for next generations, and in our economy, in our music spaces, and all of that. And I think what you're identifying is really the on the ground real challenges that we have created for ourselves, and that, you know, the system has created, that doesn't allow the next generation to come up. And so that is, again, something I think about a lot. And I think these are really great concrete examples of just, again, making physical space for younger people to do what they want to do. And then so many great things come out of that.
Ms. Bronga.
I don't know if you're aware, if I know at the Folk Festival, there's Folk Festival music camps. Are there any camp opportunities for youth to kind of see the industry and record? Do you know if anything like that is available?
Are you speaking with our company, or are you speaking about the city?
Just as the city in general. You know, I feel like summer camp sort of experience would be one avenue.
Yeah, there used to be some music camps. I'm not actually sure if there's still any type of summer music camps or music and arts camps. There used to be some pretty big prominent ones. Again, I'd have to check on that. With us, we have several high school interns. We accept internships. They kind of learn about our industry and learn about production, stage production, and just music business in general. You know, speaking to that, I also would, you know, and I apologize if there's already existing ones, but, you know, I think another actionable item out of this meeting would be to actually have a conversation with maybe it's Spirit of Youth or actually the youth, because I sit here as someone that's almost 40 and I don't want to speak for a 14-year-old on what they want. So having conversations with youth panels about things that they'd like to see in the city, are those in existence? Do
That's
you
my
have
4 o'clock today. I'm going over to Alaska
Well,
Teen Media
there we
Institute
go.
to have a conversation with
Yeah.
the youth.
because
Good
really,
question.
yeah, hearing from them is so powerful, because we assume what they want, but then they're, you know, they might want something else. And so letting them be heard through avenues like that, like Spirit of Youth, like other panels, would be probably a great action item as well.
I had a couple other things I was going to say. So one, for your parking situation, I know Bike Anchorage, you know, really wants to encourage people to get to venues in an alternative way, and they will set up a parking area where they watch the bikes. So maybe partnering with them. And the other thing, you know, you mentioned all the hotel visits, the trips to the Music Man, the beers purchased, everything that you know, it lifts our community. There's economic impact of that. And if you don't have a dollar figure, visit Anchorage. Julie Soppy she has like a calculator that can crunch out a number that your event probably impacted our community with this dollar amount. And it would be nice to include that in here.
That's awesome. Visit Anchorage is a sponsor of Sundown. They're a huge partner of ours. I will have to contact them about that. We've had that study done from some of our downtown events. George Martinez actually assisted us with that, but we haven't done it in quite a few years. So yeah, that would be great. I'll
Yeah, and then to speak to the bike aspect, we did have bike racks last year that were right in front of our entrance, and so we had kind of ticket takers being able to monitor over them, and we just encouraged people to bring bike locks and things like that. But we'll definitely reach out to them this year and possibly have it be more of a kind of sponsored thing and help them get the word out as well to people who bike. We had rideshare drop-offs as well, and just encouraged people to carpool. Or to get dropped off, and use as many alternative forms of transportation as possible. And it was something last year that there was just so many balls in the air. It didn't become a focal point, but it's really high on our list this year to push with our social media team and get the word out and be able to do kind of some more long form discussions about it. We've just launched, like many people, launched a podcast, but that allows us to really be able to get into the nitty gritty about what happens at the festival and answer some of people's frequently asked questions. And we're planning on doing a whole transportation episode where we focus on all of the different forms of getting to the festival and things like that. So I look forward to sharing that with you when that's out.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about all the possibilities. I particularly love the right-hand column on your slide there. Did we have this emailed out to members? No, Mandy, can we email the slide deck out to members so folks have it, and then I'll have it easily accessible in my email. Okay, so any other thoughts and questions? Anything else you want to add?
I mean, I'd speak definitely to what's being said here about being able to engage our younger community. I know if we look at our membership demographics, we are not we're not pulling in younger folks. Our membership dues haven't changed in 36 years. I think it was $20 to be, or $25 to be a member in 1989 or 1990, and it's still 20 or $25 to be a member. Any donation is really considered a membership with us. Trying to bring in bands that are attractive to a younger demographic is always a challenge too. We really do have two camps that are mostly our older members want more traditional music, so very traditional Irish bands, traditional whatever. So the bands that we brought this year, we do have a younger generation following them, and we know that from what research we did and how they came to us, and so that's definitely part of our thought process and how we're moving forward. It's hard, right? And to try to bring younger people in. They can get music, and they get music very differently, say, than I did. But yeah, how can we expand this?
It's a great beginning point.
It's a really good conversation to keep having.
Yeah, it's a great beginning point. I'll just say it from a personal note. I took a college class many years ago, folk singing, and had to pick a song, and I picked a song. And when I was done, the teacher failed me, not because of my voice, up for that song, because she didn't think the song was folk. So I understand that difference you're talking about, those schools of thought. Helen?
Just a quick thought too. I was sitting here thinking, I don't, and again, I'm not sure how grants or scholarships or whatnot are awarded sometimes from the city, but perhaps partnering with the NAVE to do mini grants so that kids can apply to the NAVE so they don't have to pay the full $1,200. I understand that the NAVE has to, also make profit.
What's the $1,200?
It's a rental fee, and
For the
that includes
space.
all the production and everything. And it is a full service
Understood.
plug and play space. It's
See,
just,
now that's something
it's a
that
bit
we probably
more-
can manage from a liability perspective. That's very interesting.
so it'd be something maybe to look at so that if you were under 18 or somewhere, you could apply and have this cheaper rent.
And some of that might fall under the rubric of our alcohol tax
The-
opportunities for the community to promote prevention activities and ways for kids to be engaged that are going to keep them out of trouble in the future that aren't currently existing programs. So we can have conversations about that later. We are running out of time. So I'm going to say this again is the beginning of a conversation, not the end of a conversation. I have a few prepared comments that I'd like to wrap up our first Food for Thought work session today with some good news. I like action, like you, and after the Music Cities conference that George and I attended, I was listening to that painful music that plays when assembly meetings go on their break or at ease. It's from the 1980s, canned music. And so we put out a solicitation to have Alaskan Anchorage musicians submit songs. And the music you heard earlier when you came into the room were songs that were selected and paid for. We paid artists, and their music, Alaska Anchorage artists' music, will now be featured during our meeting broadcast when we're on breaks and intermissions. We don't quite yet have the tech to stream it in the chambers while we're on break because we're updating our whole broadcast system, but when that's done, we'll get there as well. So we've contracted with 12 local musicians and bought the rights to 20 songs that reflect a broad range of tone, tenor, and the voice of our city. So we agree making concrete investments in our community is warranted, wise, and good. Artists were invited to submit their work through a call for submissions that lasted a month. Our team partnered with the municipal art curator for our Percent for Art program to screen submissions and select the tracks for the program appropriate for public broadcast. And just to highlight an example, Another Summer by James Glaves featuring Bethlehem Shalom captures the feelings of heartache we all feel, some more than others. Come late August when the sun is leaving, another summer come and gone. Come on, summer. The universal experience of our seasons changing resonates at a higher chord for us here in Anchorage. There's unity that's in the shared experience, common sense of identity. And from laughter, love, and heartbreak and grief, our community has been through a lot in the last few years. Music is a way to share in those feelings and find common ground. And maybe in that there is a role for government. We heard some ideas today to bring people together, to share perspective, to invest time and energy, and to grow our future, and to keep our kids here. That's food for thought, and that's what's good for Anchorage. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll be back at 1 for our work session.